Shalom lekulam, and welcome to our weekly Parsha study. This week's Parsha is Parsha Balak. Balak is the book of Bemidbar, that is the book of Numbers. Numbers chapter 22 verse 2 to chapter 25 verse 9. And in this Parsha we have some subjects. The main subject here is Balak, the king of Moab, and how this king calls a prophet Balaam. And it's very interesting that he's called a prophet. It's just he's a prophet not from the side of Kedusha, but from the side of Tumah. And Balak calls Balaam to curse the children of Israel, the people of Israel. And when Balaam was basically in his way, he basically gets kind of like challenged or disoriented by his donkey, who sees something before him, what is called the angel of God in front of him, that was basically blocking his way, and that's why the donkey started acting the way he acted. And there's a special passage in there in which the donkey talks to Balaam, and Balaam then finally sees the angel of the Lord, and somehow he changes his mind, and 3 times from 3 different vantage points or places, Balaam tries to make these curses happen by his mouth, and each time what he comes out is a blessing. And Balaam also prophesies the end of days and the coming of the Mashiach. And this is something interesting because this prophet was supposed to be from the side of Tumah, yet he sees these things. And what it is interesting is that we call him a prophet, and we're used to religiously to talk, when we talk about prophets, we talk about prophets that are from the side of Israel. We never talk about prophet from the side of the nations. But we're going to see why he was considered a prophet, why the blessings that he said came out of his mouth, and why Balak needed to use Balaam in order to make these curses a reality. What kind of force this prophet has that Balak didn't have, and we're gonna study that. And this parsha also, at the end of the parsha, talks about how the people fall prey to the charms of the daughters of Moab, and they all these daughters of Moab entice the children of Israel to worship an idol called Peor. And when this becomes a public event, meaning that there was a high official ranking Israelite who took a Midianite princess into a tent, then this special character appears, and this character is called Pinchas. Pinchas killed both of these people, and this stops a plague that was already raging among the people because of their idol worship and false idol worship. And if you've been studying, the parsha, the parsha before, you understand that anything that has to do with lashon hara and idol worship creates a plague in the midst of the children of Israel. So in this case, it was the same thing. In the parsha before, we didn't talk about it in our previous lesson, but the reason why Moshe needed to make this brass serpent so people can gaze to it and be healed is because they were bitten by venomous snakes. And why those venomous snakes were there biting people, fiery snakes as it is translated, is because of lashon hara. So it's basically a plague as well. So that's how you need to see it. Anything that has to do with Lashon Hara, idol worship, creates some kind of plague. Same thing happened to Miriam and Aaron when they spoke against Moshe, that they were punished with Sahara, which is kind of like a skin disease. And and you need to see this pattern within the Torah, and you can look at these plagues as something that really happened in the physical realm, and also you can look at it as a blemish in the soul of the people that we're talking about. So it's not necessarily a skin disease in the physical skin, but it might be also it might also be seen as a disease on what is called the or spiritual skin, which represents Malchut. Okay, so let's start with our study for this Parsha Balak. Like I said, this is on Numbers, book of Bamidbar, or book of Numbers, chapter 22, verse 2 to chapter 25, verse 9. And it starts by saying, Veira Balak ben Tzipur. And it says Balak son of Zippor. He saw. And Balak son of Zippor. Zippor means bird. So I want you to, I'm not gonna touch too deep into this, but you need to understand is the use of animals between this king and the prophet Balaam. Zippor basically means that this king was a person that used animals in order to see the future, have visions and things like that. So he needed something physical, something of action, in order to do something. In this case, because he was a person of action, he wasn't a person of words. We're gonna see why he needed Balaam, because Balaam wasn't a person of action, he was a person of words. The same thing as Moshe was a person of words. That's why the Creator says to Moshe, say to the children of Israel. And that's why in the previous Parsha, the Creator says to Moshe, speak to the rock. Instead, Moshe hit it twice, right? So, and keep that in mind, because this is the reason why Balaam somehow is considered more elevated than Balak when it comes to the prophecy or the use of forces that are in the Tumah. And before we continue, we need to understand this, because we're gonna see it when Balaam explained to Balak why he cannot curse the children of Israel, and it's that there is no magic and sorcery in Israel. Yet that's exactly what Balak and Balaam were trying to use against Israel. Meaning, magic and sorcery stem from the side of Tumah, their lower, basically, I would say, systems or techniques that instead of helping a human being, they just bring the human being lower. And in this case, Balaam understood that, and he rather used his words to bless than to curse, because he knew it was going to mean the end, if you will, of both of them, Balaam and Balak. So it says, Balaam son of Zippor saw all that Israel has done to the Amorites. Moab became very frightened of the people because it was numerous, and Moab was disgusted in the face of the children of Israel. Moab said to the elders of Midian, now the congregation will lick up our entire surroundings as an ox licks up the granary of the field. Balak son of Zippor was king of Moab at that time. He sent out messengers to Bilam, son of Beor, to Petor, which is by the river of the land of the members of his people, to summon him, saying, behold, a people has come out of Egypt. Behold, it has covered the surface of the earth, and it sits opposite to me. So now please come and curse these people for me, for it is too powerful for me. Perhaps I will be able, and we will strike it and drive it away from the land. For I know that whomever you bless is blessed, and whoever you curse is accursed. So, well, like I said before, uh, Balak didn't have the power to do that kind of curse, because the curse needed to be by mouth. And in this case, he acknowledges, that um, acknowledge it by saying, "For it is too powerful for me. Perhaps I will be able, and I will strike it and drive it away from the land." So he's trying to use Balaam as as a kind of like a psychic, or as an instrument in order to accomplish this, to unify both of them, both forces, in order to do that. And very interesting here is that the Bnei Israel, the children of Israel, or the people of Israel, are called by Balaam a nation. A nation. And what we need to understand is, when they're called a nation, they're referring to the lower aspect of Israel, which is a more physical aspect. When they're called Kahal Israel, or Bnei Israel, the congregation of Israel, or the son of Israel, is from a higher aspect of Israel. And if you've been studying with us the Parsha, the weekly Parsha, you understand that Israel, the Bnei Israel, are in the aspect of Malchut, while then you have the Levites and the Kohanim and Moshe, being of a higher rank, if you will, in the spiritual realm. And we use the tree of life, okay? So, one thing that we need to understand about Balaam and Balak and Bilam. Balak and Balaam, or Bilam, they have within themselves the evil, or the negative sparks of Cain and Hevel, Cain and Abel. Balak was mostly from the side of Cain, and Bilam was mostly from the side of Hevel. However, because they both have some kind of spark, even though it's negative, from Hevel, not only from Cain, but from Hevel, that's why you're gonna see the letters Beit and Lamed in their names. Balak, Bilam. Alright? And Rabbi Yaakov Hussein, in his writings, he said that Cain and Hevel are based in the 5 attributes that are written differently at the end of the world, at the end of the words. So the end of the words, there's a letter Mem, Nun, Tzadik, Pei, and Chet. They're called Mansepach. These are the Atiosophet, the final letters of the Hebrew alphabet, and they're 5. And we mentioned in the Parsha before that they are actually, the number for these Mansepach is 280, and when you add 1 digit for each of these letters, 285, with was equal to the word para, which is cow. But in this case, what he's trying to tell us is the following: that the 5 attributes of justice, which is a mansepach, is divided as follows. Mem corresponds to the nose. The letter Pei corresponds to the Pei, to the mouth. The 2 openings emit the breath Hevel. These 2 openings, Hevel. When you say the word Hevel, you're using basically the nose and the mouth, Hevel, to spell Hevel, which is Hevel is Hey, Beit, Lamed. That's Abel. Abel is Cain's brother. Those they correspond to Hevel. That is where Bilam's strength came from. his only power was in his mouth, through his ability to curse. The remaining letters, which is the Nun, which corresponds to the arm, the Sadik, which corresponds to the hand, and the Kaf, which corresponds to the fingers, this letter corresponds to Cain, for the total value of 160, the same as the name Cain. Okay, these parts of the body are where Balak strength came from. So what you can see is that from the first letter, which are the letters Nun, and I take that back, it's from the letter Pei and the letter Mem. From the letter Mem and letter Pei, you're gonna have the forces that Bilam or Balaam is using, which is the forces of speech. Then from the Nun, Kaf, Sadi, what you have is the forces of that Balak was using, which is the forces of action, doing things. This is the difference, and that's why Balak couldn't do anything. He needed to use Bilam for that. And why is that? The reason is that, like I mentioned before, Moshe was basically a prophet that uses speech, and uses speech to make things happen according to the will of the Creator. In this case, you needed an kind of like an equal force, but on the opposite side. You have the force of Kedusha, which is Moshe, and you have the forces of Tumah, which is going to be, in this case, Balaam. Okay? So, Balaam Balak, they wanted to curse the Israelites, but they wanted to do this from the world of Bria, where the forces of impurity prevail. Because if you go for the forces from Atzilut, there's no impurity there. So they wanted to do it from Bria down. Because from Bria, that's where you have these two-dimensional forces, basically the good and evil, the black and white, and things like that. So they wanted to do it from that point of view. However, the children of Israel were in a higher level, the level of Atzilut, and that's why you're gonna see later that Balaam tells Balak, there's no sorcery or magic within Israel. How are we gonna do this? So in the world Bria, the forces of impurity prevail, and in there, what you see is that the name Yohevah and Ehie are contained there, and they have different kinds of variations. So they were trying to use Balaam Balak, in this case, Balak sent Bilam to curse them with the name Ehie, which alludes to the verse, please come and curse me, Lechana Arali, as the final letters are Ehie in these words. Yet Bilam wanted to curse them only with the name Yohevah instead of using the name Ehie. But in this time, the final letters are arranged. Yohevah is arranged as Vav He He Yod, as is hinted in Balak's messengers in the verse that says, "Spend the night here, and I shall answer you." Lianu po halayla vehashvoti, which is spend the night here, and I shall answer you. That's in Bemidbar chapter 22 verse 8, and the final letters of these words is Yod-He. The Yod-He is arranged as Vav He He Yod. Okay, and this is something that is very interesting, because basically Balak wanted to do something, but Bilam was seeing another way to do this. It was using, instead of the name here, using the name Yohevah, and it's different arrangements in order to do this. And why they needed to do these different names of God in order to curse the children of Israel, and it's because that's how some magical systems work. In the case of Israel, they don't need these different names or permutations of that name to create things. If we ever use those names, especially those of us that practice meditations for meditation purposes, nothing like magic, sorcery, or anything like that, that you'll find people saying that they're Kabbalists out there, and that they can perform these type of miracles using the name of God and things like that. We cannot judge. We gotta judge everybody favorably, but that's not a way to use the names of God. It has nothing to do with fixing what's out there. It's for fixing what is in here. Okay. So when we study Kabbalah, the name Yohevavhe has what we call miluim. Miluim is basically feelings into it, and these feelings are basically different ways that we can expand the name by spelling the name in different ways. And those expansions, we have 4 expansions of the name Yohevavhe, and we touched base on these names in the intermediate lessons of Kabbalah, in our Receiving the Upper Light channel, and also Receiving the Upper Light website, www.receivingtheupperlight.com, in which we talk about the names Ab, Sag, Ma, and Bon. And these are different spellings of the name Yohevavhe. The first one, which is the name Ab, is spelled Yod, He, Viv, He. And then when you add those letters, it gives you 72. The second, which is Sag, is Yod, He, Vav, He, and that the addition of those letters is 63. The third one, which is Ma, is Yod, Ha, Vav, Ha. The addition of those letters gives you 45. And the last one, which is Bon, is Yod, He, Vev, He. It gives you the name Bon 52. However, we change the letters because if you read a 52, it will be Nub, but we change the letter in order to create Bon, to have a letter, the nun suffix at the end. What happened is the added letters to these numerical values will give you 46, 37, 19, and 26. Taking the Yohevavhe out of those spellings, those are the numbers you're gonna get. Okay. Now, if you all the other letters from all the 4 names, 72, 63, 45, 52, they equal basically 128. Then if you add 4, one for each of those names, meaning you add 1 digit for each of those names, you have 4. The total numerical value is 132, and that's going to give you the same numerical value as the name Balak. Bilan or Balaam strength came from the name of the name of God, which is Shaddai. When you switch that name according to a system, a gematria system called Atbash, the name Shaddai becomes Bakem Bet Kuf Mem, which has the value of 142, and that will give you exactly the same numerical value as the name Balaam or Bilam. And this is why Bilam says, the vision of Shaddai he sees, because he sees things from that level of Shaddai. Understand this, that he sees it from the level of Shaddai, not from the level that Israel sees when they use the name Shaddai. Israel sees from the level of El Shaddai. instead of from the level Shaddai. Okay, so that's something that we need to remember, the different levels of vision here. So there's a lot to cover here with this, but let's talk about Petora, or Petor in English. This may be read as Pei Torah. Uh, Remember, this is where Petor, which is by the river of the land of the members of his people. This is where Balaam was located. But let's talk about Petora. Petora, like I said, can be divided into Pei and Torah, which is the mouth of Torah. In other words, Balak was saying the nation relies on the power of Torah, which they learn, with their mouths, and gives basically their speech a lot of power. So if I have someone like Balaam who has that power as well, maybe I can, take over these people. Maybe I can, he himself as a force of Tumah, can go in and infiltrate the forces of Kedusha. And when he says, the which is by the rivers, he refers to the Sephirat Da'at, the attribute of knowledge is called river, whenever we see it in the Torah. Okay? And there's a verse that says, "Behold, a people has come out of Egypt." Remember, instead of calling it the people of Israel, he called it, Hine Am. Behold, a people. Am. Yatsa Mimisraim, has come out of Egypt. Just as Balaam and Balak have root souls from the left side of Cain and Abel, also the children of Israel have root souls, root souls on that level as well. And we saw that when Korah, when we studied Korah, how he was actually from the side of Cain. He was supposed to correct, the sparks of Cain, and he kind of failed on that mission. And within the children of Israel, we will find people that still have that mission to correct, the side of Cain. So what happened here is when Balak sees the people of Israel coming out of Egypt, basically he sees them as their people. He calls them their people because it's rooted on Cain. What he sees is the root souls of Cain, and it's basically what he can see because that's where he's rooted at as well. Remember, Balaam was rooted mostly from Hebel, even though he was from the evil side of Hebel and Cain, but he was mostly from Hebel, while Balak was mostly from Cain, even though he was rooted also on the left side of Cain and Hebel. And that's what he saw when Balak said, and it sits opposite to me, it sits opposite in me. He means that the power corresponds to my power. So it's like they have the same power I have. They have basically the same root soul I have. Yet these people are kind of like a high level, because they're part of the Kahal Israel. Therefore Balak, told Balaam, with your help perhaps I can defeat them, but the only way he can defeat them is with the power of the mouth. Okay? And we mentioned, it was too powerful to him because Balak could not use the power of the mouth. Balaam can use that. Balak was mostly of the power of action. Then there is something that is kind of like a prophecy from the part of Balak. Excuse me there. Because he mentions basically, it's like he's prophesying basically what's going to happen. He said, "For I know that whomever you bless is blessed, and whoever you curse is accursed." So if Balak is asking Bilam to curse the Jewish people, he says, like, please come and curse them, and why he mentions, because I know whoever you bless will be blessed, and whoever you curse will be cursed. Does this mean that he's expecting you cursing and you bless me? Probably, right? Because I will be able to strike them, And it says, well, I first asked Bilam to bless him, according to how Yaakov Haseira says. Balak first asked Bilam to bless him, so that he will gain the power from the main letters of the Yohevah. Afterward, Balak could join Bilam, and perhaps he will be able to also use his mouth to curse the children of Israel. But as we know, that did not work. Now, there's a story that is very interesting, and is the story of Balaam and his donkey. And as we know, basically the donkey saw the angel of Hashem, standing on the road with his sword drawn in hand. And from the road and walking to the field, and Balaam struck the donkey to turn it towards the road. The angel of Hashem stood on the path of the vineyard, a fence on this side and a fence on the other side. And remember, we says this side and the other side, left and right. The donkey saw the angel of Hashem and pressed against the wall. And he pressed Bilam's foot against the wall, and he continued to strike it. So these are, if you study Kabbalah and you're in a more advanced level, but I'm going to give you a preview of what this is all about. Vineyard, center column, fence on both sides, center column, but then he gets pressed towards one side. So if Bilam belongs to the side of judgment, the sign of Cain, basically, he was basically pressed towards the side of mercy, chesed, and that's why he felt basically pain, because that's not where he belongs. And then when he talks about press Bilam's foot against the wall, when it says Bilam's foot is the lower part of Bilam's, which is lower level of Malchut in the Parsuf Bilam, because Parsuf not necessarily means everything that we think is holy. There's also Parsufim that are from the side of Tumah. The angel of Hashem went further ahead and stood in the narrow place where there was no way to turn left or right. The donkey saw the angel of Hashem and crouched beneath Bilam. And Bilam's anger flared, and he struck the donkey with a staff. Staff is, as we mentioned, Geburah. The donkey means, the lower instincts, or the lower vessels that are very egoistic. And the path we know is a spiritual path. And the left and right, we're talking about the side of Geburah and the side of Chesed. And when we see, all this symbolism, we're talking here that there was a spiritual struggle inside Balaam's consciousness. Okay? And the angel of the Lord is no other than the representation of the light. In this case, that will be Seramping. Depending on the level, it can be the angel of the Lord can manifest in different levels. But let's say in this case, Seramping, because Bilam is from a lower realm, which is Mahut. And Rabbi Yaakov Haseir mentions, the meaning of the sword is the letter Vav, and the path of the vineyard, a fence on this side, a fence on that side. Each represents the two hay. So you got the lower hay, the higher hay, and the Vav represented by the sword of the angel. And the narrow place corresponds to the letter Yod, the smallest of all letters in the Torah, which is like a tiny dot having no length or width. So basically it's telling you uh, the internal struggle was happening according to the levels of the Yod-Heh-Vav-Heh. Then Hashem opened the mouth of the donkey, and he said to Bilam, "What have I done to you that you struck me these 3 times?" So from the point of view of the donkey has done nothing wrong. The donkey saw the angel of the Lord. But from the point of view of Bilam, the donkey has done wrong because he's not doing what his master wants him to do. So that's why he was stricken. So in this case, it's the one that is supposed to be less wise, which is the donkey, is telling something, I would say wise, intelligent, while the person that is supposed to be wise and intelligent is not, because he doesn't see the big picture, or he didn't see, in this case, the angel of the Lord. And 3 times. So in these 3 words, the final letters are spelled Moshe. Se Shlisha de Galim. These 3 times. And since Moshe gains his strength from the actual name El Shaddai, from Shaddai like Bilam, while you're only connected to them in a tenuous and redundant way, how can you think that you're equal to him? This is the donkey basically talking to Bilam. Furthermore, the donkey asks, "What have I done to you?" Ma Siti Lach. These 3 words plus 1 for the total phrase has a numerical value of 886, equal to Moshe Israel. Furthermore, the initial letters of Ma'asiti Lach, "What have I done to you?" spell Amal, which means toil. The donkey was telling Bilam, "You believe that since you are rooted in Hebel, or Abel, as is Moshe and the Jewish people, that you can defeat them. However, you believe is worthless." The word Amal, toil, is hinted to in the final letters of these words. Implies that it's worthless, the effort that Balaam is trying to do. And then furthermore, as the donkey said, Se Shalosh Regalim, these 3 times, these basically can be spelled, or can be translated, we'll say, these 3 feet, instead of Se Shalosh Pa'amim, which is 3 times. It was hitting that 2 feet, basically. The final letters of this word, Se Shalosh Regalim, spell Moshe. And basically what the donkey is saying, this person that you're trying to defeat has 3 legs, and as the name Moshe implies, Moshe is an acronym for Moshe, Seth, and Hebel. So Moshe has the root soul of Seth and Hebel. So Balaam is from the root soul of the evil side of Hebel and the evil side of Cain. So there's no way of defeat. So the monkey is saying, it's not gonna happen. However, Balaam thought he could defeat Moshe for the following reason. He thought that because of his name, Balaam, it can be spelled as Baal-am, which means no nation, and that's why Balaam thought that he can defeat, the nation of Israel with his speech. But by this internal struggle with the donkey and the angel of the Lord, the donkey basically tells him, your name, even though you think it is spelled Baal-am, no nation, can mean also Ba'amal, which means with toil or worthlessness. So that's why Balaam said to the donkey, because you mocked me, if only there were a sword in my hand, I would now have killed you. The donkey then says, I am not your donkey that you have ridden all your life until this day, and have I been accustomed to do such a thing to you? Like, have I ever made fun of you or things like that? And the answer from Balaam was no. Uh, so by answering no, Balaam was forced to admit that the truth and agree that the donkey was right, that this is worthless, because Moshe has a higher force than the one that we're trying to defeat, the one that we're thinking we can defeat. The children of Israel are rooted in Atzilut, what these two characters, Balak and Bilam, are trying to do something from lower realm, from the realm of Briah down. And that's something that basically the donkey knew, and Balaam didn't know until the donkey made him basically think about. And at the end, you see that Balaam then sees the angel of the Lord as well, and come to his senses with the donkey. So it says here, we're gonna be now reading on chapter 23, verse 7. Said he raised his voice with his parable and said, Balak, king of Moab, led me from Aram, from the mountains of the east, and said, curse Yaakov for me, come bring anger upon Israel. Yet how can I curse what God has not cursed? How can I bring anger if Hashem is not angry? For from its beginning I see it is like rock, and from hills do I see it. Behold, it is a nation that dwells alone, and is not counted among the nations. Who has counted the dust of Jacob, or numbered the seed of Israel? May my soul die the death of the upright, and may my end be like his. So this is desire that arose in Balaam at the end, basically saying, they're higher than us, they stand alone. This is not a nation that is divided. This is a nation that stands in the realm of Atzilut. So that's basically where it is. In the Zohar, in volume 3, page 208, says that Balaam spoke often with the angels Uzzah and Asael. These are two fallen angels, and these are the angels that actually taught him about sorcery and how to create spells and all that. And this is why on verse 24, verse 4, he mentioned fallen with uncovered eyes. He was referring to these two angels, the angel Uzzah and Asael. So the Kabbalists tell us that we need to understand that there are forces at play in this story, and it's the following. The children of Israel, they stand alone, but they have a lot of forces. They don't rely on sorcery and trickery and magic. And the reason is because the Shekhinah dwells in them. That's the force that they have. And also all the merits from their forefathers. For example, from Abraham, who has the numerical value 248, equals the name of Hashem, El. Okay? But this is only if you time the name El times 8. So 8 times the name El equals 248, which is the name of Abraham. Yitzhak, he has the numerical value 208, and this equals the name Yohevaheh times 8 as well. Jacob has the numerical values 182, which equal the name of Yohevaheh 7 times. Joseph has the numerical value 156, which equals the name Yohevaheh 6 times. Then we have the name Israel, which represents the entire assembly of the children of Israel, it has a numerical value of 541, which is equal to the initial letters of the Sefirot. So, Keter, Hokmah, Bina, Gedulah, which is Chesed, Geburat, Tifaret, Nesach, Hod, Yesod, Malchut. The first letter of all of them, 541, that's Israel. So, what you see here is that Israel doesn't need to pick from here and there to defeat certain enemies because they are whole. They have all these attributes within them and they're homogeneous. They don't have to take them apart like Balak and Bilam were trying to do. Take this name here and add it to this one here, and then we're gonna go to this mountain, and from that mountain, it doesn't work that way for Israel. Israel has a direct connection. All they have to do, in this case, of Moshe had to speak, all they have to do is perform what the Creator wants them to do, and it will be done. And see if we can jump ahead a little bit because we're running out of time. There's a lot to cover. This Parsha is very, very interesting because it's talking about how these forces of Tumah and Kedusha fight with each other and what really is the end result of this. Let's see. If I can find. Okay, so we're gonna pay attention now to this. This is gonna be on chapter 24, verse 3 to 9. It says, He raised his voice with his parable and said, The words of Bilam son of Beor, the words of the man with the closed eye, the words of the one who hears the saying of Shaddai, one who sees the vision of El Shaddai while falling and with open eyes. How, and this is the part that is, it gives you the hints of where he got his power or his knowledge from. The words of the one who hears the saying of God, who sees the vision of Shaddai, no El Shaddai, Shaddai, while falling. So he's talking here about the fallen angels, and with open eyes. How good are your tents, Jacob, your dwelling places, Israel, stretching out like brooks, like gardens by a river, like aloes planted by Hashem, like cedar by water. Water shall flow from his wells, and his seed shall be by abundant waters. His king shall be exalted over Agag, and his kingdom shall be upraised. It is God who brought him out of Egypt according to the power of his loftiness. He will devour the nations that oppress him and crush their bones, and his arrows shall pierce them. He shall crouch and lay down like a lion, and like a lion cub, who can stand him up? Those who bless you are blessed, and those who curse you are accursed. So what we see here is basically a blessing, and this blessing, a part of this blessing is read in the synagogues to these days. Especially we hear that, basically it's called the Matobu, where it says, How good are your tents, Jacob, your dwelling places, Israel. And that is read in the synagogues, the Matobu. So now let's go. This will be, our last part of the study. See if I can do this before time runs out. So it says, that in Shar Gigulim Hagdama 22, that the Arizal says, that Bilan is the reincarnation of Laban. And like Laban wanted basically to take advantage of Yaakov, Israel, and basically destroy them by keeping them, captive and things like that. To the point that Yaakov needed to run away with his wives. And the same thing Balaam was trying to do, but he couldn't. He needed to bless them at the end. just like Laban did. At the end, he had to let them go, you know. Uh, so the name of the word of Balaam, son of Beor, the name Beor means destroy, alluding to Laban who wished to destroy the Jewish people as well, right? When he mentions, that the words of man with a closed eye, that means there's this level of prophecy called Ruach HaKodesh. In the case of Bilam, it was in the Ruach HaKodesh, which is an open eye. This is a closed eye. Uh, it's not a holy eye, it's a closed eye. Who hears the saying of El, or of God. Um, so when he says this, and sees the vision of Shaddai, you know, he doesn't have El and Shaddai together like Moshe, El Shaddai together. He sees things apart, a system. In order for him to tap into the system, he has to do basically by part, do it by part, and that's considered, idol worship, and because everything should be one. Here, Israel, the Lord God, the Lord is one. The Lord is not many things. The Lord is one. His attributes manifest, in with different names, but that doesn't mean that that name is God. And that's basically what's happening here. Balaam was basically using the different attributes of the Creator for his own sake, and also using them like if they were gods apart. And how good are your tents, Jacob, your dwelling places, Israel? This refers, according to Sanhedrin, Talmud Sanhedrin 105b, it refers to the synagogues in the future. Your dwelling places, Israel. So basically, he was prophesying about the future. This is synagogues all over the world and things like that. And because he was from the root of Laban as well, reincarnation of Laban, uh, he saw also uh, that the Jewish people of the future, in this case the children of Israel, they were rooted also into Parsuf, the Parsuf of Leah and Rachel, which were the daughters of Laban. And he had only a grasp of the outer dimensions of these realms, and where the bottom of the high realm, Leah, connected with the top of the lower realm, Rachel. And he realized now that he had nothing compared with the Israelites, that the soul of them were rooted in this dimension that he couldn't at all, access. And when he talked about how good are your tents, Jacob, your dwelling places, Israel, tents and dwelling refers to these two Parsuf, Leah and Rachel, as well. So basically saying, that even these Parsuf are complete, are strong Malchut, Nuvim, inside the Parsuf Israel. And then he continues stretching like a brook. This alludes to the dimensions of Asiyah. The gardens by the river alludes to the inner dimensions of Yetzirah. Aloes planted by Yohevah alludes to the word of Briah. And the cedars by the water alludes to the inner aspect of Atzilut. So, and basically he's saying that these people have actually completed all these tikkunim, all these corrections, and there's no way that he can do anything. And that's why he says, that they are beyond his power. The main sparks of holiness are from the seven kings who die, referring from the seven lower sephiroth of the word of Atzilut. And these seven kings that die are basically the 7 days of creation, meaning that they have also the corrections of the 7th day, which also includes the Shabbat in it. And water shall flow from his well, and his seed shall be abundant like water. It's basically the water that flows from his well is the Torah and the wisdom. And if you can see, how the wisdom of Torah, has expanded throughout the millennia. And now with the wisdom of Kabbalah coming out, it's considered, the waters raising from below, going to doing a request now for waters from above. So he's prophesying about that. At the end of the day, that's basically what is happening. So those who bless you are blessed, and those who curse you are cursed. So basically, he's repeating something that the Creator said to Abraham: those who curse you will be cursed, those who bless you will be blessed. So this is an affirmation that the children of Israel, Kahal Israel, congregation of Israel, is somehow blessed when they're working together, when they are doing what they're supposed to, when they are a homogeneous body, and even when the forces of Tumah see them vulnerable, like in this case, we saw that this king became afraid because when he saw what the children of Israel did to the king that attacked Israel, when he saw that the cloud of glory disappeared when Aharon died, you know, even with this vulnerability, if they are true to their calling and to the oath that they made to the Creator to use whatever they're given for Lishma instead of Lo Lishma, that they're guaranteed protection, not from a cloud of glory. They're guaranteed nourishment, not from a rock that flows water, but directly from the Creator. That all these things are little aspects of what the Creator is giving them. So the same thing, we can apply this personally. That if we're doing our corrections, if we're doing what we're supposed to do, if we're working internally, if we're doing what we're asked from the Creator to do, becoming one mind, one soul, one heart, loving our fellow human beings as we love ourselves, that we're guaranteed this protection. That the forces of Tumah, whether they're external, internal, or spiritually, any attack that comes from our environment, from our own emotional, mental states, and or even spiritual attacks, that we are guaranteed protection. That we're guaranteed that if we are a homogeneous whole, homogeneous spiritual being, that we're guaranteed that. But just as the Kahal Israel is, it's not considered only one individual, it's considered many individuals becoming one. The same thing applies to us. We need to make sure that for us to attain this protection, that we are one. However, if we continue reading the Parsha, we're going to see that there's a trick where they couldn't curse the children of Israel by mouth, but they can do something. They can bring them down from that level of Atzilut by sending the daughters of Moab, then using these lower instincts, the vessels of egoism that they have, and working them out and basically infiltrating those vessels and making them see that the system is not homogeneous, that the system is parts of a system, and that you can take here and there and bring them to the same level of Balak. In that way, it can be they can be destroyed. But at the end, what we're gonna see is that there's a character called Pinchas, and he does see what is the purpose of this infiltration of the daughters of Moab and this idol worshipping of Peor. And then when it says a high-ranking Israel official publicly takes a Midianite princess into a tent, that means that now the forces of Tumah are getting higher, are raising themselves, or are bringing higher Parsuf down to the levels of Tumah, to the Cliphotic realm. So Pinchas comes and kills them both. Kills them means, the light is departs from them, and the spear, means geburah, and also means justice, you know. And in this case, he stopped a plague that was raging among the people of Israel. And like I said, plague has to do with idol worship and lashon hara. So lashon hara is from speech, evil speech, right? And idol worship is basically Balak. So Balaam, Lashon Hara, Balak, is the bad actions, which is uh, basically the idol worshipping and all that. So we have a choice. We have a choice to be like Kahal Israel, see things homogeneously and be protected all the time, and be like Moshe, be on the right side and stay in the center column, and be as zealous as Pinchas to make sure when we see something that is wrong within ourselves to correct it right away and kill it right away. Or we can choose to be like Balak and Bilam, in which Bilam was using the evil speech and Balak the evil actions, and not being protected, against the forces of Tumakas. They will take over and bring us down basically to the dark realm of the Clifford. So I leave you with this, and there was a lot more to talk about. It was I had to skip basically half of what I have planned because it's a lot. Probably in the next uh, video for this parsha I will add that part that I didn't cover. But I hope you have enjoyed. If you are watching me before Shabbat Shalom. This year is a double parsha. It's Hukat and Pinchas, Hukat and Balak together. But usually the parshas are apart. Is This year's is one of those special years in which we have some double parshas. So uh, this is one of the double parshas. I hope you have enjoyed. If you are seeing me for Shabbat Shalom, and I'll see you next time.